Well, thank you very much for raising the level of expectations. I really appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot play football, but I will try to share with you some ideas about the kind of environment in which we are going to operate. Before doing so, let me say that it's a great pleasure to be back here at InnoTown. I think that it is a great environment to discuss about the future. This being said, I have to tell you something. There is nothing worse for an economist if you have somebody in the audience who says, "Hey, Prof, I remember what you said the last time." So I hope you have forgotten everything I said 2 years ago, and that we can start again with a clean plate. So let's see where we are and what is the world of today. I think that actually it's not very easy to find out. Winston Churchill used to say the following: the difficulty, the challenge is to forecast what is going to happen and to explain later why it did not happen. And every economist, every professor knows about that, and this is what I'm going to try to do. The world indeed is upside down, and we had a cascade of crises from financial into an economic crisis, and then it went into a social crisis, and from the social crisis in certain countries into a political crisis. I think that altogether we are in a world which is broken down, no doubt. And as it was very well said in the introduction, the name of the game is to find out what is the new reality. What is going to be the new normal? What are going to be the rules of the game after the crisis has ended? What is normal? What is not normal? This is what we are going to see. Now, it's a dual world. On one hand, you have the governments that have problems. You may have noticed that. The budget deficit in the OECD region is something like $2,700 billion. It is quite huge. The total debt in the OECD region is something like $36 trillion. Actually, it's so big, it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just a number. And we are playing with numbers and we forget it is money behind. So this is a problem. On the other hand, you have a situation which is interesting. The companies are really having a lot of cash. This is the amount of cash on the balance sheet in the United States of America, more than $2 trillion. In Europe also. Companies are really doing much better than governments. And a company like Apple has $145 billion of cash available. This is $12 billion more than the US Treasury. Not bad. But when the US Treasury needs money, they can print it. That's the difference. Which sometimes we would like to do in companies. Okay, so basically an incredible level of innovation. Actually, if you are looking, these are the events. These are the companies which has changed our life during the past 15 years. Imagine how difficult it's going to be for all of us to foresee what's going to happen during the next 15 years. Companies like Google, like YouTube events, and Facebook and all this changed our life. Actually, there is something interesting in these charts. Most of these events, most of these innovations took place in California, and California is bankrupt. Now, this is interesting. It shows you the difference with the two. Now, I said most of them because one of those did not take place in California, the euro. Now, of course, if it would have taken place in California, maybe it would work better. But that's another story. So the world of today is split between the government and the enterprise, and we have to know what's going to happen. Now you are reading the press. We definitely have a slowdown. I mean, it's affecting the economy. It's also affecting us. You know, what's going to be our strategy? My new diversified retirement plan is 30% hope, 30% wishes, and 40% prayers. You can try it. It works, you know, pretty well. Where are we? We start to get the latest number. This is GDP growth, Q1, 12 months period of time. Very bad news for most of Europe. Some countries are doing a little bit better, like you can see for Germany and Sweden, but the rest is not very good. If you are looking at Latin America, the situation is also disappointing, especially with Brazil, which is slowing down. Not so good numbers elsewhere. Mexico is picking up a little bit. Very good numbers in Venezuela. You can relax, they are wrong. There's a bit of cooking, but don't worry too much. Turkey, India, and Russia could do a lot better. South Africa 2.5%, and if you are looking at Asia, definitely there is a bit of up in Japan. Japan is picking up a little bit. China is slowing down. We have not very good numbers in Korea, etc., Taiwan. But China, 7.7%, frankly speaking. Any one of us in this audience, we will take tomorrow 7.7%. So actually, yes, it's slowing down. It's going to be a challenge for us. It's not dramatic, but this is probably going to be, with one hope, the United States of America, Q1, which is at 1.8%. Actually, this is probably the only good news we have on the international scene at that stage. So pretty tough situation. Now, if you go quarter over quarter, which gives you a sense of direction of the economy, China slowing down a little bit. Europe is practically on recession or is stable, and then the United States of America is picking up. So I think we are ahead of a rather difficult year, but, you know, we will try to make through it. The first thing is that the debt burden won't disappear. I mean, whatever we are talking about, I mean, this debt mountain, which is the one we are confronted with, is going to be there for some time. Just as a reminder, these are the countries between 10 and 60% of debt. The emerging economy plus the smaller nations in Europe. It's surprising, Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, all these are relatively doing well. The largest economies in Europe are so-so. I mean, they are between 60% and 100% of debt, including the US. And this is how you know the countries with a lot of problem under above 100%. Now, I have to say that it will be with us for some time because it's slow moving. Why is it slow moving? Take the United States of America. Even if all the measures of economy are implemented, in 5 years from now, the budget deficit is still 3% of the GDP. Even with all the measures of economy, in 5 years from now, the debt is still 104%. It's so big, it's slow moving. And I think it will be with us for some time. Same story in Europe. In Europe, we have now 11 countries where the government is spending more than 50% of the GDP. This is enormous. And of course, when you are in this type of situation, it's very difficult to go backward. The third reason probably is that the central banks are playing a good role elsewhere, but in Europe, for the euro, there is a problem. Now, if you take the Federal Reserves, it has been buying $1,600 billion in government bonds, fine. The Bank of Japan is buying more and more and sustaining the economy, but the European Central Bank, by legislation, cannot buy bonds of government, and therefore is only at $250 billion, cannot play its role as a central bank. So one of the problems of the Eurozone is a problem of governance, is a problem of capacity of decision. And actually, this is well explained there. Europe should speak with one voice. And hopefully, not this one. And this is a problem we are having today. I mean, we have this capacity of decision which is not there. Then we have the cascading effect. If you are looking about what's happening here, this is the federal debt in the US, $16.7 trillion, but you go one level down. California is almost bankrupt. You one level down again, and Detroit, the cities are almost bankrupt. This cascading effect is what we are worried today, the sub-sovereign debt. And the same story in Europe. If you take, for example, Spain, Catalonia, Valencia, and Madrid have severe debt problems. And Catalonia wants to become independent. That will help. You find that the German state, half of the German states have a debt problem, including Berlin. So debt is everywhere, and this is really the challenge for the future. So the name of the game is to find money. How do you find money? The first thing you go and you say, well, may I try taxes? These are going to be the tax revenues, not the tax rate, the tax revenues as a percentage of GDP. That's where we are now. Countries where the government is collecting more than 40% of the GDP in taxes. Good news, Norway is part of it. Between 30 and 40%, these are the countries which you have. This is more or less okay. And you have two countries where the government is really collecting under 30% of the GDP in taxes, and it is Greece and the United States of America. Yeah, the United States of America in 2011 collected the lowest level of taxes in the past 40 years, and you should not have too much taxes, but if you don't have enough, you go into debt. And this is really the issue. We are going to have on the horizon a lot of things about tax reform, a financial transaction tax taking place in Europe. 10 countries have accepted it. 0.1% taxes on shares, 0.01 on derivatives. This is in the pipeline. A big reform on taxation in the United States of America, interest deduction, etc. But the biggest one is a reform of the taxation of global companies. You have seen the story with Apple, the story with Starbucks, with Amazon. How do you tax company in a global environment and global scale? This is the biggest revolution which is coming now on taxation. Of course, tax pressure does not mean tax efficiency. And the point is the following: can I write off my taxes as a bad investment? You can try, it never works, but you can try. So, next point, we have a bank dilemma. And the bank dilemma is the following, is that traditionally the banks which are supposed to lend money, actually in this environment are borrowing money. Why do they borrow money? Because we have put on them some regulation like Basel III saying Tier 1 capital requirement 7%. To find this 7%, they go on the market and they borrow money. And we have this very strange situation upside down, very well illustrated there. You have the little man going to a bank and say, I'm here to ask you for a loan. And the banker answer, that's funny, me too. So we get this completely reverse situation, which is quite interesting. And we are overreacting because we were so scared by the financial crisis that we have put a lot of laws. This is a Basel III agreement, on capital requirement, liquidity, 616 pages of exciting financial ratios. Our friends in the US have done even better, 848 pages in the Dodd-Frank Act. Rules of application for both 60,000 pages in Europe and 30,000 pages in the US. How do you survive that? It's impossible. Actually, McKinsey has estimated that in Europe, this will create 70,000 full-time jobs. And after people are saying that we in Europe, we are not innovative. Look at that. We have in life a tipping point where suddenly sophistication becomes nothing else than complexity, and very well established and defined by Peter Drucker, the famous American professor who said one day the following: remember, there is nothing so useless as doing efficiently something that should not be done at all. How many times in life do we do things well, but nobody wants it, nobody needs it, but since we do it well, we continue to do it. This is ridiculous. Another example of that is all of us, we go on internet, we download programs, and suddenly this screen appears, terms and conditions. Do you read it? No, you don't read it, you push on the button accept, and you are correct not to read it. Because if you would read those terms and conditions, you would spend 250 hours a year reading this nonsense. We are going in the other direction. We do too much and people don't care anymore. And this was as a strategy, very well summarized by President Truman, who said one day the following: if you cannot convince them, then confuse them. So now you know what you have to do. Can austerity work? And I think this is really the problem with it. I just want to show you one chart on it. This is a level of debt of those famous countries which had a problem of debt, Italy, Ireland, etc., as a percentage of GDP when the crisis started in 2008. After 5 years of austerity measures, they have all increased their debt level. Why? Because the GDP has been collapsing faster than the debt, and therefore the ratio has increased. The more they go in austerity, the more they have debt. This is crazy. And this is why our Greek friends, they have the impression they turn into a circle. I think austerity measures are going to be rethought this year. We cannot continue that way. We need growth. Next one, Next one, maybe. Next one. Where is the money? Where is the money? So here we are in this situation where something interesting is happening. We all speak about the BRICS, you know, Brazil, Russia, etc. And last year, a lot of money went into these countries, 263 billion of investment. But very interesting, out of this country, for the first time, you had $126 billion going from the BRICS to the rest of the world, which means that the patterns of investment are changing. They are really very much looking at sovereign wealth fund as an instrument of investment, and also looking at foreign currency reserves as a means to pay for everything. But for the first time, the flow of money is changing. Where is the money? These are the foreign currency reserves. I give you an update. This is where you are in Norway, but most of your money is in the sovereign fund. This is maybe the old money. The old money, the one you find in foreign currency reserve. The US has little because the world is in dollar. This is what you find in Europe, in my country, Switzerland and Japan. And this is now the new money. The new money, as you can see, China number one, then Russia, Korea, Taiwan, India, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil. Altogether, these 7 countries are managing $5,736 billion. It's a lot of money. So what do you do when you are the president or the prime minister of the country? You take your phone, you call Beijing, you call the state of Qatar, and you say, how long has it been since I told you how much I love you? The name of the game is to recycle the money. Now, how do you use the money? The new priority is the number one is the purchasing of assets. More and more of this money is used to buy companies in Africa, 700 Chinese companies operating in Africa, Latin America. For the first time last year, a lot of money has been going to Europe and buying companies in Europe. This is new, huh? And the second big revolution is using this money to finance the globalization of local companies, to help them to become global players. As a consequence, you have this explosion of new brands on the market. Names we didn't know really 10 years ago, like Haier in China, now the largest household appliance manufacturer in the world. And this explosion of brands, of new names, also is happening in the financial sector. We start to see people who are becoming global very quickly. And actually today, what we have found is we have about 1,000 firms from the emerging economies which have a turnover above $1 billion and that can qualify to be global companies. New partners, new suppliers, new distributors, but also new competitors. I think the name of the game is changing. And the name of the game is changing very quickly. I'm going to show you now the largest construction firm in the world. And as you see, on the 10 largest, 5 now are from China. 10 years ago, 5 were from Japan. It's changing very quickly. And it's going so fast that if you are taking the Financial Times Global 500, you know, the largest company in the world, actually between 1950 and 2007, you had 52 entries from the US and 12 entries from Europe. But during the past 10 years, we had 22 new entries from China. This is going extremely quickly, and keep in mind, if you take the 22 largest companies in China, today, 21 are directly financed by the government. So we are in a different ball game, and this is going to have an impact on all of us. It's going very quickly, and the question for all of us now is to know what's going to come next. We have tried raising taxes, trying to call the banks, trying austerity measures. What is left? What is left is hope. Hope that the consumer finally will wake up, because the consumer is 2/3 of the economy. And you may remember I told you that actually the economy of the world is split in two. We have on one hand an economy of replacement, where you update a product, you go from a newer product replacing an older one. I buy a cellular phone, but I have one. I buy a car, I have one. I buy a TV set, it's to replace an old one. Which means that in a period of economic recession, I can freeze and stop buying non-essential goods for 1 full year without experiencing a drop in my standard of living. And that's what people are doing in Japan. in Europe and in the United States of America. I just freeze and wait, and nothing happened. And then you have the rest of the world where you have a first buy economy going from nothing to something. This is the first time I can buy a washing machine or a cellular phone. Give me money, I take it and I run with it. And this is really explaining the difference in consumption patterns. And actually, you can redefine that in another way. You can say I have on one hand an economy of I need it, which is the economy of the emerging market, and on the other hand, you have an economy of I want it, which is the economy of the advanced economy. And let me show you how this happened. When for the first time the iPad came to the market, you remember? Nobody in his right mind needed an iPad. But then, thanks God, Steve Jobs came and he said the following, with the iPad, it will simplify all the tasks you never had to do before. So you were told, you don't need it, but you want it. And you say, I didn't know I wanted it, but since you tell me, I buy it. It's a new marketing technique. Maybe you can try that at Lego. It should work. So basically, the world is split in two. You have the need to have in an economy, the nice to have. And actually, how do you pay with it? You pay with it by wealth creation, or you pay with it by credit creation. When credit creation is bigger than wealth creation, you have debt. And that's where we are. And actually, a lot of the debt that we have created today is for nice to have and not need to have. And this is the issue for the future. This is creating a social time bomb. And I think if we are looking at the consequence, you may remember my cascading effect at the beginning. This is unemployment in Europe. I mean, the levels are really quite terrifying. But even worse, this is youth unemployment. Those kids between the age of 16 and 24 years old, look at the numbers. We are at 8.5% in Norway. This is still okay, but look at Europe in general, 23.7%. The US, look at Spain, 55%. Greece, 58%. If we don't provide jobs to the younger generation, we have a hell of a problem, because this is not economics anymore, it's social, and very soon it's political. So here, this is a time bomb in the making, and we need to solve it as quickly as possible. So, are you still alive? Good. What's next? What's happening in the future? What are the next business model? I want, as usual, to share with you the numbers about the market size in a generation from now, 2050, and to show you that 2050 is tomorrow. I want to bring you back one generation ago to show you how close it is to us. This is how we looked like a generation ago. Who is it? This is President François Hollande from France. Not bad, you better get used to that, huh? This is how she looked like a generation ago. Who is she? Yeah, that's right. This is Chancellor Angela Merkel from Germany. Nice, huh? Don't laugh. This is how we look like a generation ago. This is Prime Minister Cameron of the United Kingdom. This is how they look like a generation ago. This is Bill and Hillary Clinton. Yes? This is how we looked like a generation ago. President Obama of the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, when you are looking at these pictures, tell yourself, in life, everything is possible. I have to say, to be honest, to be complete, I tried to find a picture of young President Rajoy, young Prime Minister Rajoy of Spain. I couldn't find any. This guy was never young. You know, he was born like that. Let's see the numbers. The numbers are the following. Actually, what you are looking is that this is 1 million of people by continent. It's updated every quarter. 2050 North America plus 100 million people. Latin America plus 160 million. Europe in 2050 stable. Africa, fasten your seatbelt, plus 1 billion. Africa, a land of opportunity or land of tragedy, but something will be done, and Asia plus 1 billion. Within those numbers, 2 engines of growth. The first one is the emerging middle class, more than $10 a day. You know everything about them. Motivated by success, money consumption. I think the big innovation is that now we have a new class, the emerging less poor, those above $2 a day, not yet middle class. They need a business model on their own. And that's why you have the $35 tablet on the market. That's why you have the $2,500 car made by Tata in India. That's why you have microfinance and microcredit. That's why you have mobile money. Mobile money was not invented in Europe or the US. Mobile money was invented in Kenya. And I think this is a huge change because we have a different attitude and business model. I want to show you in Africa. These are some African countries. And this is a percentage of those people having a bank account. Everybody is under 50% of the population. This is a percentage having a mobile phone subscription, and everybody is above 50%. And it shows you that the means of making business are changing completely. And if you are taking Africa today, Africa altogether would be the 5th world largest economy, something outstanding. But then somebody did something interesting, took the map of Africa, and within Africa you can fit today China, the United States of America, India, and all Europe. Just to show you the sheer size of this continent. We don't realize it because it is on the equator, but Africa is immense. It's a huge continent, and I think it's a continent where a lot of business will be done in the future. It will be also a world of cities. Urbanization is the name of the game. In 1800, we were at 2% of the world living in cities. Now we are going to be very soon 60% worldwide. But more than that, you have a concentration of mega regions. If you are looking at the Pearl River Delta, it's 120 million people around Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and Macau. If you are looking at Nagoya, Osaka, Kyoto, Kobe, it's 60 million people, and just next door, you have Tokyo, Yokohama. 40 mega regions today already around the world contribute to 66% of the world GDP and 85% of the technology. So we are really in a situation where the world of tomorrow is going to be a world of cities, and managing cities is going to be really the real challenge. But within this revolution, you have to ask yourself, what are the rest of the world industrial going to do? Let me show you this. The real issue today is to define where a product is coming from. If you are looking at the foreign content in Chinese electronic export, 40% of what is being exported from China actually was not made in China. It was assembled, but not made. Same story with the cars coming out of Germany. 35% of the content was not made in Germany, was made elsewhere. So basically, you cannot say a product is made in Germany or in China. Actually, it has been made in the world. Made in the world because the business model has been extreme outsourcing. Extreme outsourcing made by almost everybody. And this is a little kid telling his mother, I got top grades. I outsources my homework to a kid overseas. And I can tell you they are doing it. Huh? So actually the business has done exactly the same thing, and with great result. And as a consequence, we have deindustrialization. These are the latest numbers for the United States, for the UK, for Japan. In 20 years, they have lost about 20% of their industry. And if you are looking worldwide, everybody has been losing its share of manufacturing worldwide, with the exception of Germany. So the impact has been enormous, and the impact has been enormous simply because the business model was creating this impact. 3 big innovators, Thomas Edison creating General Electric, Henry Ford, and Steve Jobs of Apple. This is a market capitalization that you will find in General Electric and Ford last week. This is a number of people employed by both companies. This is a market capitalization of Apple 2 days ago, and actually it used to be above $600 billion, you may remember. And this is a number of people employed by Apple, 61,000 only. So basically you have an immensely successful business model which is not creating employment. And this is really the problem which we are having today. it is the creation of employment. So one day I summarize the situation by saying what you can see here is jobs without jobs. Jobs without jobs. It's a good one, no? So the value chain has been going longer than before, but the problem is that it is longer, it's more complex, it's more expensive, and especially it's more vulnerable. It can break down any moment because you have flood in Thailand or you have a problem in Japan, and people are speaking now about reshoring. Reshoring is bringing back some of the business home to control it better. 3 million jobs may be created that way in the US. And actually what you are going to find out is that reindustrialization has a very different impact. General Electric has put back his household appliance division in Louisville, Kentucky from China. Meanwhile, by doing that, the wage went down from $22 to $13 an hour, and despite that, it got 6,000 applications in 50 minutes on internet. But most of the business going back is going to be high technology. It's going to be robots, automation, creating white-collar jobs with technology much more than blue-collar jobs. But I think that reshoring, reindustrialization is becoming the name of the game for a lot of countries. Let's see where we are on commodities, because being in Norway, I think it's very important to look what's happening in this field. And let's see where we stand now. 3 numbers you have to keep in mind. Number one, the fact that the total energy demand in the world will continue to increase by 38% in 2030. Number two, most of the consumption of energy will take place outside the US and outside Europe and will be in the rest of the world. This is where things will go very quickly. Number three, by origin of fuels, what you will find is that 25% will be renewable, but actually still 75% are going to be fossil fuel, which means oil, gas, and coal, and the big winner is going to be gas. And actually, if you look inside this revolution, you have another revolution, which is the energy renaissance in the United States of America. Today, the US is importing 20% of its energy, and actually in 2015, the US will produce more gas than Russia, and in 2020, the US will produce more oil than Saudi Arabia, 12 million barrels a day. And actually, what you will find here is that according to the German Federation of Industry, the price of electricity in 2020 in Germany will be twice expensive for companies as it will be in the US, a huge competitive advantage in the making. But what is perhaps even more interesting is that actually, if you are looking at the world today, suddenly, everybody discovered that it has energy. With the new technique of exploration, with shale gas, etc., you have oil everywhere. Actually, France has the largest reserves of shale gas in Europe. They have discovered oil around Paris. In my country, Switzerland, we have discovered oil in the Lake of Geneva. At $120 a barrel, we start to exploit and we diversify from private banking. So everything is possible. The problem is the following. It's not whether you have it, it's whether you want it. Because when you tell the French, listen, there is a very big amount of oil and gas in the region of Paris, they say, fine, but what do we do with Paris? And I think this is exactly the problem. You know, you are going to have the social conflict between having the energy and exploiting it. Although that in Paris they have a big advantage with the Eiffel Tower. They could already use it for as a drilling platform, you know. It could be, they have already the infrastructure. They just need to get rid of what's around it, but that's all right. And then we are competing with a mindset. And I want to conclude with this because basically this is really the key of the issue today. And I think we don't compete only with technology, with markets, we are competing also with attitude. So let's see what Sir Walter Scott said one day. He said, remember, in business, success is caused more by mental attitude than by mental capacities. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be an idiot to succeed, but it means that the attitude is absolutely critical. And we have around the world a conflict of mindset and attitudes. And I have to say that when you look at companies today, I have seen in my job as a professor, you meet a lot of companies, I've seen a lot of companies totally disorganized. but with people who care and have the right mindset, and the company is a success. I have seen companies highly organized, whose people who don't care, and it doesn't work. So I think the mental attitudes are really the key for success. And we compete worldwide with this. This is Nanjing Road in China. And in Nanjing, China, they went around and asked our Chinese friends, what are the keywords which reflect best your value system? And the answer was, by 68% of the Chinese, work hard and get rich. Work hard, get rich. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose that after, when this meeting is finished, when you go back home, call your children and tell them, come here, I have to speak to you. I have heard at this conference that in China the name of the game is work hard and get rich. You ask my son, my daughter, do you recognize yourself in this value system? They're going to look at you and say, well, actually, to be frank with you, you can happily forget the first part of the sentence, which is totally uninteresting, and go immediately to the essential, which is basically get rich. And we have an entire generation of quick money, which is get rich quickly. And I see it with my students. They tell me, you know, Prof, if we are not a billionaire at the age of 25, we are a failure. I say, maybe not. But there are so much, you know, looking at the Bill Gates and the Zuckerberg and all that they believe that money has to be done quickly and easily. No. But there is even something better. Actually, if you look at the next generation, the younger one, the smaller one, and you tell them in China, work hard, get rich, your older brother, your older sister says, I don't want to work hard, I want to get rich. What about you? And the younger one, the smaller one, will look you in the eyes and they say, well, actually, I don't even want to get rich. And you say, what? You don't want to work hard, you don't want to get rich, you don't want to build your own house? And they will look at you in the eyes and they will say, but Mommy, Daddy, why do you want me to work hard, like an idiot, to build my own house, while you have already done it? All I have to do is just to wait. So we have a wait-and-see generation in the making. Now I have to tell you one thing. I had this discussion at home with my son, and he told me, well, Dad, if I understand, I just have to wait. And I say, hold it. There is one part of the theory you should not forget. I intend to live longer. Which means that the money will go above you and will go directly to your children. And since we have had this discussion at home, I have to tell you one thing. The atmosphere is much more tense than it used to be. We have to accept uncertainties. This is Henri-Frédéric Amiel. Henri-Frédéric Amiel is a Swiss philosopher. We have one. Here he is. You know he's Swiss because he has a watch. You have seen the watch here? He's Swiss. And he said one day the following. He said, the one who insists on perfect clearness before he decides actually never decides. And I think this is very correct and very profound. When I was younger, I used to work a little bit with Bill Hewlett of Hewlett-Packard, and he was telling us, if you want to be 100% sure, you will be 100% late. And I think this is very correct. There is a moment in time you have to jump and just do it. You have to manage your image. You have to manage your image in the old media. It's not easy. But managing your image in the new media is even more difficult because you don't know who is in front of you. This is a rumor. These are many people all together. And this is a huge challenge for the future. What is happening on the social network? I think the younger generation, they want something more than just profitability and cash flow. And this was well explained by Henry Ford, who says a business that makes nothing but money actually is a poor business. And he's right. The younger generation wants, how do I contribute to society, to sustainability, etc. Being profitable is just not enough. There is a time for innovation, and this is InnoTown. But let me remind you, there is no real innovation if you don't have also excellence in implementation. A significant part of the success in life is made by just excellence in implementation. And since most of you probably you are going to go back home and you are going to take a plane, when you are going to sit down in the plane the next time, spend 10 seconds and think about me and tell yourself, in this plane, the last thing I want is an innovative pilot. Somebody was going to say, hey, I have a new plane, let me show you what I can do with it. No. So basically, there are times in life you don't want innovation. You need to have self-reliance. Working in group is fine. Working alone is even better. This is a teacher telling the kid, well, actually, no, you cannot call the help desk. And this generation believes there is a help desk everywhere. This is not the case. So to conclude, two things. The first one is that what are the key of success? It's first a management of efficiency. Number two, it's a management of change. Change is there. We need to manage it, and the management of complexity. The world of today is highly complex. We have to deal with it, and we have to absorb it. Then we have to have a layer of mindset. The first mindset is imagination. The kind of why not attitude I spoke about the last time, which is basically telling people, don't ask me why, tell me why not. That's what we need. We need people with a mindset of energy. Why not doing it now and not tomorrow? We need people with a mindset of commitment, telling us, saying, why not me? The problem is that in company, very often we have people with the attitude, why? Me? I didn't do anything. So basically, all this has to be on the ground of legitimacy, answering the question, why us? And I think the legitimacy impact is one of the most important companies we'll have to deal with in the future. So let me conclude. After everything I told you this morning, you are going to say, wow, these are so big events, so big things. Can I make a difference? Can I change things? Yes, you can. And actually, we can see here, and I will leave you with an African proverb, since I spoke also a bit of Africa, and the African proverb is the following. If you think that you are too small to make a difference, then you have not spent the night with a mosquito. I hope all of you will be intelligent mosquitoes. Thank you very much indeed.